On this episode, I'd like to introduce you to Avi Vatsa. He is a co-founder of Dailora AI, an advanced AI-powered voice agent platform designed to automate and enhance business phone interactions and customer communications. Avi is also a skilled marketer and strategist with experience in both B2C and B2B business models. He began his entrepreneurial journey at the age of 15. He has since launched over 24 products across 12 industries, coached clients in 7 countries, and delivered over 10,000 hours of life and business coaching. Despite losing everything during the COVID pandemic, he bounced back to build a thriving 8-figure marketing agency and now owns 6 companies spanning advertising, IT, HR, education, and agriculture. Avi is an avid TEDx speaker and award-winning CEO. He's been featured in over 45 major publications and recognized with the Economic Times Changemaker Award and the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Inspiration Award and more. Welcome, Avi.
Thank you so much. Thanks. That was a great intro. Thanks, Darshan, for having me here today.
Well, you did all the heavy work. I just did the intro.
Well, this is true.
You've accomplished a lot since a young age, and you start out at 15, and you've built 6 companies across different industries, and you started talking about a lot of the different entrepreneurial things, and as well as coaching. So tell me, what aha moment led you or ignited your original entrepreneurial spark early on around the age of 15? Was it even before that?
I think at the age of 15 was more of like it's a game, an experiment, got to do something in the summer vacation kind of thing. I used to be a semi-pro soccer player when I was in school. And so me and a bunch of friends, we thought, why don't we start our own soccer league? And, I had a coach who was the former captain of the Nigerian soccer team, and he was with us. So we thought, we have this guy and, he's credible and he's legit. So why don't we use him as the front face to start this soccer league, And so it was great. We had like 20 teams participating, each one paying money to participate. And there was like a winner. It was like it's a mini soccer league. And it was great.
So I want to go back to that key decision, because a lot of times people come to the same fork in the road, right? Do I join something or do I create something? But you chose to create, and that's not something often everyone does. So why did you decide to create versus join something that was already established?
Absolutely. Like even now, like for me, that is a question. Like it's everything's got its pros and cons. Like when I started business back 15 years ago, it wasn't as sexy, at least in my space, in where I am from India originally, to be an entrepreneur or startup. But now it's like the thing. It's almost like a celebrity status thing that people want to have their own startup, right? And be a founder. I don't think the founder word had reached India at that time. But even now, like for me, I would sacrifice whatever I have to sacrifice and work the 18-hour days to create something myself than to work somewhere, because it's just how I am. I've tried working at places and it doesn't work out for me. I'm a little rebellious by nature, by personality. And I feel like the aha moment really is that decision of, why am I doing this for money? Am I doing this for, what am I doing this for? And if I'm clear on my purpose of why I'm being an entrepreneur, and versus why I need to work in a job, that is the aha moment. It's the why. The why needs to be clear, right? And my why is, I want to build something that actually creates an impact for the people that I serve, and actually like leave this place, this earth, this planet a little bit better than when I began working on it, And that's literally the reason I do the business, because again, there can be many businesses I can do, but I want to do those businesses that can help small businesses like me grow faster. And that's why I'm in that space. And that's the aha moment for me.
So I'm gonna challenge you a little bit, because I'm also Indian, and I have to say most Indians are entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
from a very young age. So to
You
say that
reckon,
it
huh?
wasn't,
Yeah.
and I jokingly tell people, if you're Indian, there's no way you can do just one thing. It's kind of a national, thing. If you only do one thing, you're not officially an Indian. I say that
It's more and
jokingly.
more like that now. Yeah. Yeah. But like where I grew up, like if I look everyone around me, they were all just lawyers or doctors or engineers or teachers. Like that's where my family background. Nobody was entrepreneurial. They were mostly my mom's side are all teachers. My dad's sides are all lawyers and judges. And so everyone was working in a job. And the idea of business was almost like a little bit beneath us, you know? So it was a different, yeah. It was a different environment.
So, what do you think gave you the confidence and the desire to strike out on your own, especially since you grew up in an environment that wasn't entrepreneurial, as you're saying?
I think my main aha moment was a bit later, around when I was 20 years old, where I realized that the 9 to 5, like, because I observed several people, like my dad specifically, and several of his friends, my cousins, my uncles. Like, there comes a point where you're like 40, 45, and they call it the midlife crisis, where you're like, what did I just do for the last 20 years? You know? Um, where am I? Where am I going? Is this the treadmill that I'm going to keep being and die? Like, those are the fundamental questions. And I saw that I could have become a lawyer. Actually, I did law degree. I have a law degree. I could have kept practicing with my dad, you know, but again, it's trading time for money. And that was the aha moment, which was like, I need to do something where I don't trade time for money, you know?
Mhm.
And I can build a building, like a foundation and an organization that where I use leverage of people, technology, and resources to multiply my time for money. And that was the aha moment where it was like, oh, the only option is business or
Mhm.
writing or where I can get royalties. I create an asset and then it keeps working for me. That's the mindset.
So, you said earlier it's hard for you to work for someone. Why is it easier for you to work with people then? And what if people said the same thing? It's hard to work for somebody else, like when you're the boss. I'm just curious,
Exactly.
how would you address that?
That's actually a very good question. And I think, yeah, if you fundamentally have this idea that you cannot work with people, then you're right. Like, why would you work with your team, right? You would have problems there as well. So that's a very, very smart question. So my answer to that is I want to work on purpose of with anything that aligns with my why. So if tomorrow Elon asks me to come work at SpaceX, I would work for him for sure, no doubt. So it just depends on why, like why am I working for someone versus why am I working for myself. In my previous experiences in the organization that I worked for, it was not something I really wanted to do, so I was like doing it only for the money, you see. And that's the difference. So it's not like I don't like working with people. Like cumulatively across all the companies, we have over 150 staff now in different countries. So I love working with people. And in fact, that was my Achilles heel, where I did have this idea that I can do everything myself and I need to just, people are stupid and like, I'd rather just do it myself. And that stagnated my growth and put a ceiling to the growth for a really long time. And I had to change that idea and I had to give more trust, build systems where I could actually give responsibility to others and work from there.
So, what was the moment? What was the aha moment that said, I better change as opposed to trying to do it all? Was it just that you realized you actually like sleep or something else?
Um, no, it was like, I think it was like 2 years back where I got burnt out. I was working too much and I was making good money and I was having fun, but I felt like burnt out. Like I I wanted to cross that $10 million a year ceiling, And I mean I still technically in valuation we've crossed. Dailora is up there now, like total. But like in terms of It's still a way. Like there's like from 0 to 1 million, I think you can do with a small team. But there comes a time. It all depends on your goals and what you want to do, right? For many people that I know, they'll be very happy to make 500,000 a year for themselves, and they don't need that many people, right? But where I want to go, I want to cross at least 1 billion in the next 20 years, right? 10 bill is the minimum target to be achieved. To do that, it's a different game. You have to play a different way, so it's not a solo business kind of game.
So you talked earlier about purpose. Tell me, what is your purpose? What gets you up every morning?
My purpose is so simple, but it's literally to help people. And even like if you look at the nonprofit endeavors, human rights, cleaning up environmental stuff that I've been doing since I was like 9 years old. I got into spirituality, Buddhism when I was 6 years old. So I'm a very curious person, and I think that's what drives me, curiosity. And I think that is what I want to do, is where I feel human consciousness needs to be sort of preserved and uplifted. I realized a while ago that no one lives alone. We're all connected to some degree. Someone's decisions 10,000 miles away from me can actually affect my life, right? And I feel like, though, just the way I am, the way I think, I take responsibility for not just my immediate environment, but I feel like there's a sense of responsibility for the planet and other humanity, other human beings, right? So I want to either improve humanity's spiritual and emotional level, or I want to improve its technological and civilizational, societal level. There's very certain things that humanity needs right now to go to the next level in terms of technology. And I think we're getting there to become an interplanetary species, which is what actually also kind of excites me. So
tell me, what's lacking now that you think humanity really could use or benefit from, that you'd like to bring to the table?
I think there's just a bunch of lies. There's like very actively groups working to suppress humanity and work against its survival. I don't want to like get into like conspiracy, but if you like just observe, I think the fundamental error on a large scale is that we, as societies, as governments, we tend to penalize people who are creators and reward people who are consumers. And if you look at like the entire tax system in any country, the governmental programs, it's always take the money from the people who are producing and give it to the people who are not producing. And that's that kind of approach, or the approach of let's all not work and retire and live. Doesn't work. Like, you're retired, you're living your life, but you still work because you gotta have something to do. You have a very successful restaurant, right? Yeah, but you
But
still,
I'm not retired.
I mean, I consider your life retired,
Why?
because you're living it up.
So I'm not sure about that. I mean, I enjoy life, and I too like to be curious and explore things. And I too agree with you. I think there's things that humanity could benefit from, especially more conscious living, right? And being more in the moment, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I'm working on a book called "The We Need," and it's just about that. And it's really kind of the balance. It'd be interesting what you think. The balance between your three elements that really are in your brain, right? And your character, and that is your conscious, your subconscious, and your ego. And I think if you reach a balance between the three, then you can get to that next level of not only balance, but clarity.
Yeah. This is very true. This is very true. And
Why is it true?
because I think if we are not, like, what I believe, if you don't have a balance in your consciousness or like if you're fighting with yourself, let's say, like you have these thoughts and you hate yourself inside and you're always fighting internally, you're going to have conflict externally as well. I feel like our internal realities actually build our external realities, right? So knowing yourself, being conscious of your subconscious and being conscious of your ego and having a balance there, I think I am a more of a utilitarian kind of philosophy of life, where I exists to serve others. So I will not be able to serve others if I cannot serve myself. So I think it's like
Mhm.
the same thing you can say, if you don't love yourself, you ain't gonna love another person truly, right? So it starts with yourself and then it extends out. But I think happiness also is in helping others and being a being
How did you come to this realization? Because in all honesty, not people that are even much older than you have not come to this realization. So I'm curious,
uh,
how did you come to this realization?
I read a lot, I experience a lot. I think I came to this realization when I was like 14 years old. Um, yeah, I mean, look, we're a very spiritual family, and I have been working spiritually, if not this entire life, minimally this entire life. So since I was 6 years old, like I said, I remember having my first memory of practicing Buddhism, and I read a lot. I read 2 to 3 books a week, and I'm very open to all religions, all philosophies. I feel that's very important to I may not agree with everything, but I must respect everything. Everyone has a right to have their own beliefs. You know, as long as they don't hurt the majority of people. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, have your
Yeah.
beliefs as long as you don't need to go impose them on others, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So how did I come to this aha moment? Because if you just look, you see the person who's when you like, because I've like I became a life coach, certified life coach when I was 17. And I've I was just interested, right? So I've helped a lot of people. I've listened to a lot of people. And when you listen carefully, active listening, you realize that whatever people are complaining about is the times where they failed to help another being. And it just becomes very obvious that we're like interconnected as a global consciousness, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I guess, it just comes to me.
You just said something very interesting that I want to unwrap, and that is you said active listening.
Hmm.
One, what is that, and why is that important?
Right. Now, fundamentally, the truth, like there's many different theories about this, but for me, active listening fundamentally is being here, not just in body, but in my mind and in my attention, present in the now, like you said, being in the moment, right? Lots of people, even when we were kids in school, our bodies would be in the chair in front of the teacher, but our mind was somewhere else. A lot of times when you're talking to somebody or listening to somebody, you're nodding your head and you're pretending to be there, but you're actually thinking of 100 different things that your attention's on, right? And so you don't actively listen. You're passively listening, right? Active listening is first you got to be fully present in the now and interested and in full attention with the person in front of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at least, and that for me, that's a respect thing as well. If I'm not here listening to you, I'm on my phone secretly or I'm on like another screen, I'm not giving you the attention and the respect that you need to have a communication with me, right? So I think for me, that is the first thing as active listening. I know there's people, they're like, oh, listen to these cues and these indicators and like try to like add their stuff into it, trying to like diagnose. I don't feel that's right. I feel it's just fundamentally, it's just being there and listening, fully being
Mm-hmm.
present. Yeah. And that's what it is. Because then you remember more, you're engaged more, you can ask the right questions. Uh, but if you're somewhere else, then you're not there.
I agree with you completely. In fact, I'm going to put another layer to this as well.
Yeah.
Active listening is also a lot of times when people are listening, they're already thinking how they're going to react, or they're already starting to react. And that to me is not active listening. That means basically put your lens aside, right? We all bring a lens to the conversation, right? Because you bring a walk of life I can't replicate. I bring a walk of life you can't replicate. So we all bring our own lenses. But to me, active listening is making sure put that lens aside and actually listen to what the person is saying first. And then you can always apply your lens that you need to. Or more importantly, you may want to apply different lenses depending on your objective with that individual. Does that
I
make sense?
love that. That is so beautiful. You put it so beautifully. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah, like, don't put your lens and add your thoughts or, lens, like your prejudice or whatever. Like you were beautiful. Are you a wordsmith? You should,
Yeah, I do a podcast.
well, there you go.
No,
That's
actually, I've written a book. I can tell you I'm working on my second book. So
There you go. So exactly. And I think if we just be there, not try to be in the future or already plan to react, just be there in front of someone and actively listen with our attention, there will be less arguments. Oh, and I found like people don't acknowledge. I think that's a problem. Like someone's saying something to them, they even listen, but they won't let them know that they've been heard. I think that's also very important because a lot of fights happen because of that, They don't let people know that I heard you. Yeah, I got that. Thank you. Understood.
well, I think you hit upon something very, very important. That is that a lot of times people, actually you can disagree. That's not the problem.
Yeah,
The problem is when people feel that they were not heard.
exactly.
It's not that you didn't agree or disagree. It's they didn't feel they were heard.
Right.
And that is a key part of listening is, and you're absolutely right. People should feel they were heard, but you can still disagree when you pull out your lens. And
It's
at
totally
that
different.
point, you actually come to a meeting of the minds, even if you say, we agreed to disagree, but you do it on terms with respect and understanding. But more than anything, even a bit of empathy. Like you might say, okay, I understand what you're saying, Avi, but I just come from a different viewpoint. And you'd say,
Yeah.
okay, I get it. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but at least tell them that you understood them. Because like if you're saying something, I'm like, no, 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 you listen to me. Right. And then the person's like, you didn't even hear me, man. Come on. Right. So like I was having like these moments. I was dating this girl and, I was feeling angry and upset many times, especially while talking to her on WhatsApp, you know? So I would say something like, this is how I feel. And she would counter it instead of saying, hey, I got that. Like, I understand it. That's how you feel. So I was like, all this time, I was just feeling not heard, and it would exacerbate or make it worse that fight. So I look back, like every single time I had a fight with her was because either me or her failed to acknowledge the other person's origination.
Mm.
And you can save a lot of trouble for yourself in relationships and business if you just acknowledge.
I think there's another challenge there. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think texting or the medium you choose to communicate influences a lot on how you can communicate, right?
Absolutely.
Because a big part of communication, listening, is actually factoring all that in, but then saying what you need to say. But depending on the medium you're using, texting versus, let's say, talking in person or even a video call, right? It makes a big difference. And to me, I think texting is ideal for logistics, quick things. But to have a meaningful conversation, I think you're going to run into problems with texting.
I think so too.
A lot of things are misread and misused, and word choice is very critical. But in those things, you're trying to type quickly, and then you can't really go back all the time and fix things, right? Or you don't.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, because part of it takes too much time, right? So that's what I think. If you're going to get into a deeper, you're better off just picking up the phone or doing a video call and just discussing it, because then your ability to communicate, understand, as well as word choice will be quite different.
100%. I am a big believer, and personal preference is always either phone or in person. I just personally don't like texting because it also makes my neck hurt. No, but but yeah, I'm not a texter, so a lot of people tell me that.
Well, one way I do sometimes, right? I use voice messages now, right?
Oh yeah,
That's actually more efficient and faster.
Yeah.
But even then, that's not the same as having a back and forth conversation, right?
It's not a live conversation. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if you want to like just let someone know something, or then you can text or email or whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's like a conversation, it's probably better to just have a call,
Yeah, and also not even an email, because email is kind of interesting as well. It's different than texting. Now you can write email, but at a certain point, if it gets to be too long, then you're going to lose the audience. They're not going to read it.
That's true.
And
But there's a flip side to it as well, right? Like phone calls don't have memories, right? So important stuff that you discuss in a call, you must put it in writing, because if you're having an agreement with somebody over a phone call and they all agreed, and then 7 months later they're like, I never agreed to this, and then you're in trouble. So you gotta, because phones are psychotic that way. They don't have a memory. At least email, text have a
actually, the
memory.
phones are the people.
Well, anything that doesn't have a memory is tends to be psychotic, you know? Yeah.
But that's changed now, right? Because even now, like Zoom calls or audio calls, you can have an automatic transcription going on at the same time.
Exactly. It's better now. It's much better now. So
I mean, and that's quite interesting because
yeah.
technology has changed with that. So in some ways,
Yeah.
you would think people would become better communicators, but I would almost argue people are getting worse these days. What would you argue? But why? Why the disconnect? We have all these tools that our ancient ancestors didn't have, right?
Yeah.
But they're the ones that came up with these philosophies. They're the ones that came up with these ways to communicate and do things.
Yeah.
But in today's day, we have everything, but we're, I think, more and more disconnected. Why do you think that is?
I think it's overwhelming and it's fundamentally dispersing and distracting, right? Like you have attention, you have a certain amount of attention, right? And when you have too many channels of communication, you get distracted and you get overwhelmed because there's just too much. Like for me, I have 3 WhatsApps. I have 4 numbers. 4 numbers. I have 2 personal Instagram accounts. There's just so many channels of communication that it gets overwhelming, you know? And I still haven't found a tool that, and whoever, maybe my team, can someone build this, please? Or tell me if this exists. It's like, it's one
Yes, why haven't you built it yet?
yeah. It's like where everything, all the communication stuff is in one place, you know? So, but I think that's what's up. Like why is it getting worse? Is because people are not fully there because their mind is distracted in 10 other things and they're just they're rushed, you know, they're always in a hurry, you know? I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like if you're not fully there, present in the moment, then you're not going to have a good communication.
So I feel like I agree with you completely. And you'll see when I release my book next year. we need it's very much like this. But I think what you're talking about is something you said earlier, and that is you fight with yourself. But I think you actually do fight with yourself. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the term of introspection. And I suspect you do a lot of that.
Less and less and less.
But, well, that's a different story. But it seems like you've done a lot of it before.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a constant internal struggle, right? Especially when you're going against the grain, when your family and your friends and the society that you're from, they think you're crazy for doing what you're doing because you've not followed the path of going for top Ivy League university and getting an MBA, and you dropped out of college and you started doing something like the society that I'm from. Everything that I've done is just like really weird for them, you know?
You're a rebel.
Yeah, it's the rebel, right? And so when you're being constantly connected to people who make you doubt yourself, invalidate your knowingness, your actions, when you're going against the society, there's an internal conflict where you're like, am I right or am I wrong? Is this going to work? And if it's not going to work, you know?
And that's where the balance between your subconscious and conscious, and that's where you achieve that through introspection. But also, that's also your ego as a protective mechanism, right? Because if it wasn't for your confidence in your ego, it'd be hard to get through this. Yeah. But again, that also needs a balance as well, right? And so I think it's interesting that you've been able to find that. But you're saying you do less introspection. Why is that?
I didn't say I do less introspection.
Oh, okay.
I do my journals, so I review the day after at the end of the day. But I feel like thinking too much is the problem, and people overthink. So there's 2 different things, right? There's introversion and introspection, right? Introspection has its ways and methods and introversion is a condition. And I think the problem with most people, I would even say 99.99% of people, even those that are successful, they're introverted. They're introverted because they're overthinking. And there's always something going on. And it's not their fault. It's every single person that you don't like, they're trying to introvert you. If you just observe them, they're 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 saying, "Oh, Darshan, you look great today, but have you put on weight in the last few days? Oh, where did you get your haircut? But and you just look around you on any news website. Things are literally just go right now, and if you go on the headlines of any of the last 10 top stories in the last 10 days, news stories, it's all danger, 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 threat, threat, threat. Environment is dangerous. Oh my God, we're all going to die. War, war, war. AI taking over jobs. So it's all designed to make you look inwards, to think, not to do, not to reach out in your environment, because the environment is so dangerous and the future is so unlivable that we are all just going to sit there and introspect. Just look at success. It's this: if you go and talk to people, go out, take walks, the environment is not dangerous. Then you can do something, right?
I think you're talking about introspection and being an introvert.
Right. That's why
I'm not talking about introvert. I'm talking about introspection. And I think you're actually doing that. I mean, most people do it naturally when they sleep, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's when things happen with your mind and things. But you're actually doing it already with journaling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is you're actually to do that means you're thinking and processing and articulating thoughts and feelings that you have throughout the day.
Exactly. So that's why
that's introspection.
Is good.
But that's introspection. And that's actually healthy because that then leads you. I'd say most people that are successful do quite a bit of introspection.
Yeah.
But that's different than being an introvert.
1,000%.
Neither is right or wrong. Introvert or extrovert is not right or wrong. Right. I mean, whatever works for you, works for you.
Right.
But I think the key is you need to spend that. I'm saying it because of what you said earlier. I think you're right. There are many distractions in today's society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In fact, more distractions. But the problem is people don't take the time to step back and think and process.
1,000%. Introspection is key. I call it self-analysis because there's a book that I used. It's got like 1,000 plus exercises, and it's called self-analysis, and it gives you questions to introspect on. And so it increases your memory, it increases your reaction time, general well-being. It's a really good book. And you just go every day, spend 15 minutes introspecting and answering the question for yourself. And I think Jordan Peterson also has a course like that. And I think your book might have some practical tips as well for that as well, right? So yeah, but just doing random introspection, figuring out, I think you need a process to introspect.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to what you were saying earlier, there's one of the things I talk about is the paradox of drama, right?
Yeah.
I think there's very few people that would say I want drama in my life. But if you look at what we look at news-wise and things, we actually pursue drama.
Yeah.
And then we end up creating our own drama. So why do you think that happens?
I think because I'm an actor. I love acting. I've done over 150 theater shows. I've been in one movie. And honestly, and I'm telling you, people love drama. People deliberately create drama. And they need to.
No one wants it in their life.
That's the paradox. Right? And that's why it exists. Because they don't take responsibility that they're creating drama. Then they're like effect of their own drama, So I think it's Shakespeare. Life is a stage, is a stage, and you play different roles. And the difference is always going to be in any drama is one topic, but it could be several other things. It's either are you doing the drama knowingly or are you unknowingly part of victim of your drama? That's the key.
That's the thing. Even if you create your own drama, you're going to feel and portray it as you being the victim.
Yeah, but if you know that you're doing it deliberately, that's empowering.
But that's different. I mean, That's owning up to your drama, and most people don't own up to their own drama.
I know.
Me
I think
included.
I love drama, and people are like, "Yeah, so many drama." I'm like, "Oh, we play soccer every Saturday, and there's just always some drama or the other in the morning, and someone's going rah 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 rah, and then we're like all bitching about this person going rah 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 rah." I'm like, guys, it's soccer, there gotta be some drama. Yeah, so I kind of revel in it. I like it.
So, having said all this, how do you strive for balance, and how do you get there? Have you figured out a way to get the balance?
I mean, I gotta ask you this, Darshan. I heard this word a lot, balance. What is it? What are we balancing?
You tell me. What do you think it is?
I don't think balance. I think maybe it comes from Buddha's the middle path. Maybe that is what.
I'll give you an example of what I mean by balance. All right.
Mhm.
You have a pendulum that swings,
Mhm.
right? And then the pendulum goes over here. What's going to happen? Is it going to go around? No. What's going to happen?
If the pendulum's swinging, what's going to happen?
But if it's at one extreme, what's going to happen?
Going to go to the other extreme.
Why? Because there are now equal or greater forces that are going to push it back the other way.
Right.
And if you think about it, that's the world we live in. We live in a world of polarity.
Right.
And I would
100%.
argue right now, I would say the world is a bit unbalanced, right?
In what way?
So, well, in terms of being at extremes, in terms of conflicts, chaos, uncertainty, right?
That's fair. I can see
It's
that.
more heightened than it has been in the past.
100%.
Will it always stay at this level? Of course not. Why? Because there's cycles and there's balance that would be restored. But going back to the pendulum, so I agree with that. I think the momentum is going to go the other way, right?
Mhm.
But at some point, true balance, one could argue, is just being in the middle and it's not moving. That to me is not balance. That's being not alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But to me, the balance is in the range of here around that midpoint, right? Because we can handle it, we can tolerate it. That's the range of balance. And that's what I mean. So when you feel yourself going a little bit, let's say, to one extreme versus the other, then you nudge yourself back and back. And you stay in that balance, and then you're in a rhythm. But when you're at an extreme, you're out of balance and you can't get rhythm.
I think I get what you're saying, and that's absolutely correct. Because if you look at life, right, we have different parts of life. You have your health, your body, you have your family, you have your, children, you have your work, your contribution to your country, humanity, different interests. People have different interests. Obsessive interest in any one given thing, with the exclusion of all the rest of the things, is always, it hurts eventually.
It can be detrimental, yes.
It is detrimental.
Like water, you cannot survive without water.
Yeah.
Right? However, if you were to drink too much water, excessive water, you would experience water toxicity.
Exactly. I think
what that does is basically gets rid of all your electrolytes, and now you've lost the balance and gone to an extreme.
Exactly. I think that's why when you were talking about balance, I felt you were talking about Buddha's middle path, that's where it comes from, because he advocated the middle way, right? Which is balance, not go to too much extreme.
Well, actually, originally it came from Hinduism.
I mean, of course, everything comes from Hinduism. Buddhism is a reaction to the...
I mean, both are good. But that's interesting because if you think about it, both those religions are philosophies.
Of course. I mean, there's no such thing.
They're not a doctrine of behavior.
Yeah. There's no Hinduism. It's Sanatan Dharma, right? But and Buddhism was a reaction towards the Brahmanical tyranny of Hinduism, right? So technically the teachings are from the Vedas and the Upanishads, which are everything, like that's the first, like, original. They're very interesting things. I loved when I read the Upanishad a long time ago. It was very enlightening. But the four...
I can tell you how, because the four what?
The 4 key sentences, they call the 4 Mahavakyas. Those are my philosophy of life, and everything I do, like, everything hinges on that. Everything that...
Share them with us. What are the 4?
Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am the universe. Tattvam. So basically, there are 4 sentences, and
Mhm.
they basically tell you that you are a spiritual being, and God is you, and God is the divine, and divine is you, and you are divine. And it's just like a circular logic, but it comes to that. Like, it proves that we are not our body. We don't have a soul. We are a soul, and we are Brahma, which is however you want to interpret it. They call it the universe, they call it God, they call it eternity, infinity. But it says you are that. You are Brahma. You are knowledge. You are a spirit, and a spirit is Brahma, which is God. So
So
that's
what
how
do you
it.
tell someone that has been raised that says there is a God, and you know,
It's true. There is a God.
okay, but then you're telling me that I am God or I'm the universe. So help
Well,
me reconcile that. Is that if I was that person?
I don't need to reconcile it because we both agree that there is a God. I agree that I see a God in you, and you agree
Okay.
that there's a God everywhere that controls everything, right? And I fully agree with that. But I see that in you and me and in everybody else. And so I come to the conclusion, which the great Swami Vivekananda came to, that, spirituality is in the service of others because I'm serving God. It's just different ways of looking at it because Abrahamical religions believe there's one God that is everywhere and does everything and is responsible for everything, and you'd better do right, otherwise he's watching, right? And I agree in that, even if you reconcile it to the Hindu, the Upanishads, or the 4 Mahavakyas, the 4 great sentences, where you are God. Your body is not God. Your mind is not God. Your subconscious is not God. You have to find that you-ness that is God. When you do, maybe you realize that it is collective consciousness, which agrees with the viewpoint of other religions as well that believe there's one God. Who knows? I haven't found it
Let
yet.
me ask you. Let's one God or one energy?
Energy. I mean, I don't subscribe to that word energy.
Why not?
I think it's another way of reducing yourself to a body because I feel fundamentally, if you look at the Upanishads and the Vedas, the description of the divine, the Atma, the Brahma, is very distinctly separate from the physical universe. The physical universe is composed of matter, energy, space, and time, right? Like physics is the study of the physical universe. Energy is a physical universe thing, which by definition needs to have a particle. I think the spirit is an energy production unit that creates energy, but is not
Mhm.
energy in itself. Because to be everywhere and anywhere and omniscient and omnipotent and God, I don't think it's being energy. It's the creator of all of those things. And space is higher than energy because energy exists in space. So it's better to say space than energy because, you know, you got space, you know, people who are
But even
happy.
within space, different energy feels right.
There can be pure vacuum of space without energy, but I'm just being
Sure, of
physical
course.
now, you know? So, but I think that word can be misinterpreted. People interpret it as there is an aura, there is a vibe, there are flows, there are energies, but are we an energy? I feel we are the
Well,
creators of energy. Hmm.
I think it's pretty clear people do exert energy. Some
100%.
people more than others, right? So I mean, there's a certain, and like you even know this now.
Yeah.
There's a certain energy you exude when you think and act a certain way that then
100%.
attracts other like mind energy, right?
100%. I mean, I don't even have to say anything because it's proven research. Rutgers University did extensive experiments back in the 1900s that proved the field around a body. The CIA program that came out, they also did those. It's very clear there is energy fields and they get
Right.
influenced by thought, for sure. But are we that is the question because there's a very, very beautiful, because you're Indian and I'm Indian and we're talking about spirituality now. Uh, One of
These
my
aha moments.
yeah, one of my favorite things to keep listening to or read is something called Nirvana Shatkam, which is uh, a song. You can listen to it. But there was a saint. His name was Adi Shankaracharya, and he kind of revived Hinduism in AD something like after Christ, right?
Mhm.
After Buddhism, after the rise and fall of Buddhism, right? And someone asked him, "Who are you?" That song is the reply to that question.
Mm.
And it's a process of saying, I am not that, I am not that, I am not that, I am not that, I am not this, I am not that. So it's very beautiful. And when you like really kind of introspect on that, you realize that you are nothing. Because Shiva means nothing. Shiv is nothingness. In terms of the physical universe, you're not space, you're not energy, you're not matter, you're not time. You just are. And that in Hinduism is what we called what is the word for it? It's like serenity, you know?
Mhm.
I'm forgetting the Sanskrit saying for it, but that's serenity. And
So, given that, let's go back to earlier when we said we need a purpose. Why do we need a purpose then?
why do we need a purpose? Because it's a game. We're in a body, right? We are here, right? You know? So I guess there's levels of consciousness, and then obviously there's a level where energy is very important, but there's a level beyond energy, I feel, which is pure nothingness and pure bliss. It's called
Yeah.
Satchitananda. I'm using these words because I feel like you've read all of this and you're kind of familiar with what I'm talking about. Otherwise, I never get into these kind of topics.
Well, I think you probably read more than I have. I do it more through living, learning, and just
Yeah.
expressing in much more simpler terms, right? But I mean, these go back, and this is the interesting, I think, phenomenon that these things have been developed centuries ago, and they were not developed by one or two people. This has been developed over time,
Yeah.
over a great amount of time, and you got to wonder how did they do that? Because they didn't have, Google Drive, USB drives. They didn't have AI.
Yeah.
And so how did they do that then? And today, when we have everything, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, we're probably more disconnected now than they were before.
Yeah. It's true.
So how does that happen?
How does that happen? That happens with, I don't know, you tell me.
I think part of it is because people don't have conversations like this. One, two, people don't take the time to introspect, which is what's needed as humans.
Yeah.
You need time to process the world around you.
Yeah. It's too hectic. And that's what I'm saying. Like, and it's been fed to you that it's dangerous. People are
Now I'm going to
dangerous.
argue it. Now I'm going to argue you're probably pretty hectic. You have 3 WhatsApps
I am.
and how many phones, right? I mean, again, I'm kind of joking with you, but at the same time challenging
No,
you.
but it's true. People think I'm hectic. But the day I start feeling hectic, I introspect. I take a breath. Because there's difference between working and producing and creating and loving it and feeling hectically anxious about doing it. If I
Mhm.
don't have that hectic anxiety, even if I'm working 18 hours a day, but the day I start getting that hectic anxiety, I'm going to go to the beach and chill out and introspect. You know, it's different.
So now I know what drives you, and I'm wondering
Well,
if you've articulated it.
well, tell me
What drives you every day?
what drives me every day.
Yeah,
I told you, um, knowledge, curiosity, and doing.
I'm going to say it's something else. I'm going to challenge
What
you.
is it? Tell me.
It's knowing that you have limited time.
Okay. I mean, I can see why you said that. Yeah.
I think
And
that's true for everybody. If you think about it, right? Our most limited resource is time, and you know this, you feel this, you've articulated subconsciously, but now I just helped you articulate it verbally.
but do you feel like that would create anxiety in people?
No, it doesn't have to. No, and of course not. I think it does in you what it's done with me is I've tried to gamify it.
Yeah. I see that. But I feel like this YOLO, you only live once philosophy, that you have limited time. I feel it creates an anxiety. It's like that hecticness.
It doesn't have to. It can, but it doesn't have to. There's
Exactly.
another one that also creates anxiety. You said YOLO, but there's also FOMO. And that probably creates
Almost.
more anxiety.
Exactly.
And you can't do it all.
Yeah.
You have to choose.
Yeah.
So you're always going to miss out on something. But the point is, the things you focus on are the things you're going to do well on, not the things you miss out on.
Yeah.
But if you try to chase everything that you're going to miss out on, you'll end up doing nothing really.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a marketer. My job is to create FOMO. So I feel I feel FOMO is fake because you're not missing out on anything. And if you have that feeling of missing out on, go and do what you want to do. Why do you have to miss out on it? You know? I don't do a lot of things, but I don't have this feeling that I'm missing out on it. You know? It's just your perception.
Actually,
Mm,
I just read
yeah.
somewhere, the one thing that almost every successful person has,
What?
their ability to say no.
1000%. I think that's the key in this life, in this kind of environment.
And that is counter to FOMO.
That is FOMO. Exactly.
No, it's counter to FOMO.
No, yeah, exactly. It's counter to FOMO because, yes.
But now our world with social media and everything is geared towards FOMO, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's like I said.
The real success comes from actually learning to say no.
100%. I think that is the key. And I learned that the hard way. And that was an aha moment for me, for sure. For sure.
Tell me that aha moment. How did you?
What
was the aha moment?
I was always a yes man, as a kid, as a young 20s. Yes, 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 yes. And you stack up obligations and agreements.
Yes, meaning you wanted to do everything.
Exactly.
Right?
And Elon would say
meaning that you would agree to everybody. I mean, so it wasn't quite a yes man, but you were actually taking on everything, thinking you could
exactly.
do it
all. Exactly. And I thought I honestly could do it all. I thought I had no limits. And I probably don't. And but the fact is that we are living in, like you stack up obligations and then you let people down.
You need balance.
You need balance. You need balance. And you need systems and you need leverage to do all you want. I want to do a lot. I've done a lot, but I need to do it in a balanced, structured way. And I think organizing your life, having people, a team, that's all part of that balance, Yeah. Like, about this very rich billionaire, what's his name? One of the first IT companies in India, Wipro, is it Wipro? Or yeah. The founder of that, he wrote like an email memo. He forbade people, his staff, across the thousands of employees, tens of thousands of employees, to work overnight and to like lose balance. And because it was such a toxic culture, where you just sacrifice your health, your family, your social obligations, and you just keep working, And he said, you don't do that. And then when they implemented that, their actual results, their income, the production went up.
Sure.
So it's balance.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have your health, you have nothing.
Exactly. What exactly?
Because that's what's going to take up all your time, energy, and emotion is getting better.
This is so true. So amazing.
So on that note, I'd like to ask you if you could have a meal or drinks with anyone in your industry or outside, who would it be and why?
Elon Musk.
Why? And what would you want to find out?
I want to find out how does he do what he does? Because the sacrifices that this man has apparently made, as per his own admission, in terms of the time that he spends, the imbalance that he has, I just want to see how he does it all. I just want to figure
it's imbalanced.
Well, per him, I was watching a video yesterday of him that he had posted of an interview where he's telling the interviewer that the interviewer is saying, remember the time when I asked you out for dinner and you said, I don't do social dinners. What's dinner? I don't have dinner. What do you mean dinner? So he has dinners in meetings, and he's apparently sleeps 6 hours a day, and he works every single waking hour of the day. So, but he has 15 to 20 kids. So he has balance, he's doing it all in a way, so I don't know about his health issues, but he's the richest man on earth. He has time to spend on Twitter, memeing around. He has time to go and do like a random job at Doge while running his multi-billion trillion dollar companies. How?
Well, I suspect one way is he has good teams.
100%. And he hires the best people. He said that yesterday in his post as well, that's for sure. But still,
it has to be.
It has to be. And at that level, that is all it is. And he's obviously running it, but he's also inventing stuff. He's done more space flights than NASA did in 30 years just this year. That's insane. So,
well, I think the two things we talked about earlier, he's definitely curious. Yeah. And he's definitely willing to go beyond his comfort zone.
Exactly. And I want to talk to him, and I want to just have a, discussion with them about how we're going to get to Mars and what we're going to do in the future. I have some interesting ideas. I have some ideas about what he's planning to do with microwave energy, wireless energy in the future. I just want to have a calm cycle. I just want to talk to him.
Well, I think it sounds like it'd be a good conversation. So on that, I want to thank you, Avi, for a great conversation. And I look forward to following your growth and progress in all the ventures you're doing. And we'll get you back on the podcast later on to catch up on what you're up to.
It was a pleasure, sir. Thank you for having me. You're a very, very nice soul. I love talking to you. And thank you for having these conversations. And thank you for actually actively listening, because the questions you asked and the challenges you did were very welcome. And thank you for those. That was a very
Thank you as well. I mean, we were both active listeners and in the moment, which is what makes it fun and interesting for both of us.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Getting to AHA was brought to you by iResearch. To find out more about us, head to iResearch.com and make sure to search for Getting to AHA in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. And don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you for listening.